Hello and welcome. My name is Brian Kaplan. I'm editor of The Banker. I'm joined here today by Zoran Stavreski, who is Vice President and Minister of Finance for the Republic of Macedonia. Welcome, Minister.
Thank you.
So tell us what the broad economic outlook is for Macedonia and what sort of budget you've made for 2014.
Well, Macedonia is a dynamic economy. We've been able to achieve a growth of 3.3% in 2013, which was one of the best in Europe. Same in 2010 and 11, when most of Europe was in a recession. Unemployment has been reduced, although at a still significant level. And our budget and public finances are in order, and our total debt is at sustainable level. Our general government debt is 34% of GDP.
Okay, so well below the Maastricht criteria then.
Well below the Maastricht criteria and well below the average of the region. So we had very conservative policies when it comes to borrowing. And also the funds were targeted for important investments in infrastructure.
Okay, now what about the banking sector of Macedonia? I mean, at the moment it's obviously quite small in global terms. Perhaps you could sort of give us an outline description of what you've got in terms of banks and where you see it headed in the future if you're going to get this growth coming through in the economy.
Well, the banking sector was one of the pillars of growth when it comes to keeping it sound and stable during the crisis and providing the necessary credit support for the private sector. It is well supervised by the Macedonian Central Bank, applying all Basel criteria, Basel standards, and it's 3/4 owned by foreigners, foreign capital in domestic banking sector. Capital adequacy ratio is at 17%, which is almost twice higher than the regulation. And there were no spillover effects from the banking crisis in Europe because mainly domestic banks have relied in their credit activity, they have relied on domestic deposits rather than on foreign funding. Credit to deposit ratio is still below 100, it's 90. So it's a stable...
And what about the credit to GDP? Because that's a key sort of measure in an emerging economy, isn't it?
Well, the credit activity was not that strong like in some other countries. So there's still a lower credit to GDP ratio in Macedonia than in other countries, which shows there is a room for increase, but of course just for profitable projects that are not going to increase the non-performing loans of the banking sector. So what we see as a perspective of the Macedonian banking sector is probably a consolidation of the banking sector. It's not more banks, but more strong banks. And in this context, we are very much open to new investors who are willing either to purchase by existing banks or establish their presence in Macedonia.
Okay, now on this whole question of attracting investment, now you're clearly doing roadshows around the world to get Macedonia's name on the map, and you came 25th in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business survey. I mean, that's a very high score, isn't it? I think it puts you ahead of some major nations like Japan. I mean, how is it you've managed to make it so easy or easier to do business in Macedonia?
There is no other way but tough and consistent reforms. Macedonia is a small country, and attracting investors in a small and landlocked country is not an easy job. You need first to put things in order. You need to improve significantly business environment, improve the existing infrastructure, and also have a labor force which is with good skills, not only competitive in terms of cost, but also of good quality. So this is what we did in the last couple of years. We invested a lot in infrastructure. We also invested in education. Around 6% of GDP is invested in education. But we also implemented various reforms in order to streamline procedures, reduce bureaucracy, reduce red tape, and make the business environment as easy and as simple as possible. The flat tax was one of the most important reforms in 2006, which was followed up by reforms in the regulatory environment, in the cadastre and property rights, judiciary, and all other areas which are important for investors. So this is how we improved our ranking being ranked 94th in 2006, and now currently we are 25th in the world, well ahead of 17 members of the European Union. So the challenge for us as a government is basically to stay consistent and constantly adapt and improve the business environment, because that's how you answer to the existing challenges and to the needs of the private sector. And this has helped us to attract some global companies like Johnson Matthey, Johnson Controls, and some other that have not only invested for the first time in Macedonia, but have repeated their investments in Macedonia after a couple of years, which shows they are satisfied with the business environment.
Okay, now you mentioned the European Union there, and there have been discussions between Macedonia and the European Union about getting your country into the European. So perhaps you could give us a little bit of update on where those discussions have got to. And in particular, I know there's been a dispute with Greece over the use of the name, which has been a barrier to your entry. And where are we with that?
Well, Macedonia is a candidate for European Union membership since 2005. So we have achieved all Copenhagen criteria, and we have legislation which is harmonized with the European legislation. So on the pure merits, on the pure criteria, we have deserved to be a member of the European Union and to at least open negotiations. However, this is a world in which some irrational issues sometimes become important, and one of such nature is the name issue with Greece, our neighbor, who is objecting our membership to EU because of the name. So we are trying to establish dialogue with the government there. However, it's because of their own internal situation and economic problems of Greece. For the time being, there is no counterpart on that side to talk about these issues. So we will see. We will try to reach an understanding and become a member of the European Union.
Okay. Thank you very much, Minister, and good luck with the roadshow.
Thank you very much.